I would like to welcome you all here for this webinar, which is on ERC International Arrangement Funding, which allows research visits from between international researchers and ERC-funded research groups. This webinar is being organized by EURAXESS UK, and I asked Adrian Fenton from the British Council to introduce this webinar and to tell us about EURAXESS UK.
Great, thank you very much, Brian, for your introduction and for everyone joining today. So I work for the British Council, but for today, the most important thing is thinking about EURAXESS and ERC. And if you hear names you're not sure what they mean, do ask us, because there's a lot of organisations here. I'm really pleased that the different organisations have managed to make it today, all about setting up research visits through ERC International and also funding and grants that are available to support that. So do have a look at EURAXESS. If you're from another country, there might be a website for your own country. EURAXESS is about connecting countries to do with research, higher education institution and career development for researchers. There's lots of resources on there. I'll post our link in the chat, but you'll find out more, I'm sure, in the next hour. So thank you very much. And I will pass you back to Brian.
Thanks very, very much, Adrian. And I would now like to invite Davide Innocenti from the ERC Executive Agency to introduce the background about ERC international arrangements and the procedure for ERC grantees to express interest in hosting international researchers.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I share my slides with you. I think you already can see those. I would like to thank you, you and all the organizer, and to give you my good afternoon from Brussels and good morning for many of you. Today, I will present you some information regarding the ERC international cooperation and widening activities, in particular about the implementing arrangement, which is one of the two mobility programs that the ERC, the European Research Council, established and represent an interesting opportunity for ERC grantees and, of course, for research fellows, potential research fellows, to collaborate. So I will provide you some background about the ERC implementing arrangement, which has as goal of fostering international participation and collaboration, and also some details about the procedure for expressing interest. But first of all, I will quickly give you some background about the initiative of the ERC, the European Research Council, in terms of mobility and mentoring programs. The first program, which is an international program, is called indeed Implementing Arrangements. As already told you, promote opportunities for scientists to visit and collaborate with an ERC research team, partially supported by non-European agency. Then there is a second mobility program, which is a European program, promoting potential ERC candidates to visit ERC research teams and to collaborate and gain experience, fully supported by European national regional authorities. Finally, there is a very recent initiative called Mentoring Program. It is a mentoring initiative that identifies international experts to provide coaching and advice to ERC applicants. Again, this is fully supported by European and national regional offices. But today, as I already told you, we will actually focus our attention on the international one, the implementing arrangement. Very quickly, how this mobility program work? First of all, we as European Research Council Executive Agency, we launch a call for expression of interest. We do that every year. This year, this will be in October, November. And launching this call means for us to contact all the eligible ERC grantees. And we will ask them to express their interest to host one or more scientists funded by a third country national funding agency. They will have a month to express their interest. The only eligibility criteria this is very important for them, is that they have necessarily to have 18 months to go to the end of their project at the time of the launch of our call for expression of interest. After the deadline, we collect all the expression of interest and we send the list of interested ERC principal investigator to the funding agencies. This will happen at the end of the year. After that, all the national based funding agencies will have to launch their internal call with different modalities. They will inform all the eligible researchers that as applicants, they have to contact an ERC principal investigator to seek an agreement on possible research visits. At this point, potential visiting scientists have to go through this list, find an ERC grantees with a project which is matching more or less their scientific research field or topic. And they will have to contact them and try to seek an agreement about a possible research visit. If the ERC principal investigator will accept the visit and agree with the potential fellow, the ERC principal investigator will have to provide a letter of recommendation and support, and the one from their host institution as well. With that, the applicant, the potential fellow, will actually apply to his own national funding agency with a proposal. Then the funding agency will evaluate the proposal and funds the successful one, of course. This is important to understand that ERC is not involved at all in this process. This is a process which is completely in the hands of each national funding agency. After a proposal has been funded, the visiting scientist can plan and execute the research visit, of course, in agreement with the principal investigator. They will have to find an agreement on the timing of the visit, of course. And again, the visit has to be completed before the end of the ERC project. So far, we have international agreements signed with 12 different countries and 16 different funding agencies. We started in 2012 with the first agreement that has been signed with NSF in US, and the last signed were in 2020 with Japan Agency for Medical Research and Development, (AMED), and the Indian Council of Social Science Research that joined the program. Every year, new agreement can be signed. Since 2012, more than 500 international researchers visited an ERC project. And as I already told you, every year we launch a new call for expression of interest, which is typically in November for us. Then later on, after we transmit the list of ERC grantees participating, each one of these national funding agency will actually launch their own. This is the list of all the agreements signed so far. As you can see, for some countries, we have more than one. Again, this kind of agreement are actually signed by the European Commission and the relative third-country research institution and ministries and institutions that are happy to participate. But this process is actually going through a negotiation that is involving as well the European Commission. So let's give a look to the fundamental processes and conditions that are common to all the agreements. First of all, the ERC, as I already told you before, does not intervene in the communication between the ERC principal investigator and the potential visitors. The selection of the scientists, again, is actually done by each third country funding agency, and there is no intervention at all from our side. Again, the visit should take place within the lifetime of the ERC project. This is important as well. And of course, it is expected that collaboration will occur in similar areas of interest, of scientific interest. Finally, the visiting researchers may be incorporated into a research team of the ERC funded principal investigator for the duration of the visit, of course. I just presented you the general structure and processes and the main condition of the program. Now I will update you on the state of play and first of all, how the ERC PIs, principal investigator, receive this initiative. As I already told you, in 2012, when the United States National Science Foundation signed the first arrangement with us, since the beginning, hundreds of ERC principal investigators immediately welcomed the program. Since then, thousands of ERC principal investigators expressed their interest to host researchers funded by third countries that joined the program. And this number grows in the last years, exceeding an average of 600 in 2020. As you can see there, we observe a flexion in the last year, but we are well aware of the consequences of the pandemics on the mobility. We expect this trend to increase again for the next call. Anyway, this means that the program is concretely providing all the researchers willing to participate an opportunity to pursue research collaboration with top scientists funded by ERC in all the different domains. But let's see how now this translates in terms of accomplished research visits. As I told you before, more than 500 researchers, scientists visited so far ERC projects and temporarily joined this ERC team for a long-term, single long-term visit that can be from 2 to 12 months or multiple short-term visits. And that can sum up on one on top of the other. The number of visits grown from 2012. You can see there were just 12 visits to 100 in 2018. And in the last year, despite all the difficulties due to the pandemics, the previously results are still encouraging. You have to take into account that some of the funding bodies postpone or suspend temporarily the initiative, but we know that this is now start moving again, and many funding bodies, majority of the funding bodies, are launching again their own call for expression of interest and the selection procedures. But more in detail, let's give a look to how the visits have been performed and to better understand the nature of this scientific collaboration. To do that, we represent here the number of visits per destination country of visiting researchers and scientific domain. As I told you before, it is expected that collaborations will occur in similar areas of scientific interest. And from this point of view, we notice that all scientific domains are represented for at least half of the country that have been visited so far. In general, almost 60% of the researchers visited a project in physical sciences and engineering domain, B. Roughly almost 30% visited a project in life science, and around 13% a project in social sciences and humanities domain. We have also visitors that visited actually a synergy grant. As you can see, I can tell you that it is not represented here, but all our grant schemes have been involved in this initiative, starting, consolidated, advanced, and as I already told you, synergy. So in conclusion, a vast and comprehensive collaborative offer, already translated in practical terms into hundreds of research collaborations and involve hundreds of top researchers of every level of experience in Europe and across the world. Finally, we'll leave you with this analysis. This is the same analysis of the destination countries only for NSF researchers. Again, as you can see here, majority of the project were in physical and engineering domain, but still life science and social humanities are represented anyway. Again, I will close this presentation, remembering that in October, November, we'll launch our call for an expression of interest. So this means we will contact the ERC principal investigators and ask them if they are happy to host an international researchers. After that, we will transmit this list to the third country funding bodies, and they will launch their own internal call initiative, their colleague collectors, and they will start the selection process. Of course, you can send us any kind of question to our functional mailbox, ERC Implementing Arrangements, and but you can also find more information on our website, on our Additional Opportunities webpage. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Davide, for this very, very clear representation of how the ERC implements these implementing arrangements. I'm now very happy to introduce Roxanne Nicolaus. Roxanne is responsible for these implementing arrangements at the National Science Foundation in the USA, and she will explain how NSF-funded researchers can choose an ERC grantee and make contact with them, and how that process takes place in the USA. So thanks very much, Roxanne. If you would like to share your screen or share your slides.
Thank you so much, Brian. And I would say Davide's presentation was a great lead-in to mine. So thank you for that as well. So I'm going to share my screen now. So let me join in saying thank you for the opportunity to be part of this this webinar today. I'm very pleased to talk about the NSF ERC collaboration. My slides are going to have a lot of words on them, so please forgive me that they are not very dynamic slides, but I just wanted to walk through the process with you all. So I'm going to start out with a few slides here that I call just the basics. So the way that this opportunity works for the U.S. National Science Foundation is that any current NSF grantee may submit a request for supplemental funding to then use that supplemental funding to visit one of the ERC funded researchers that was on that list that Davide explained. So just to be clear, on the NSF side of this collaboration, it's not a new award, it's a supplement to an existing award. So someone who already has funding through NSF. On the WHO, NSF particularly encourages researchers who are early in their career or still actively building their career. That does not mean that folks who are further along in their career are excluded. It just means that we are hoping to encourage folks earlier in their career to apply. Who may then use that supplemental funding to travel, to visit and work with an ERC-funded researcher. It can be the PI, the co-PI, postdocs, other senior personnel. And just this past year, we opened it up to graduate students funded on that existing NSF award as well. On the how much, we ask that the NSF request not exceed $20,000. If it does, we would just have a conversation about that to see if it is appropriate. So continuing on with the basics, what is covered by the supplemental funding on the NSF side. So NSF funds the travel expenses. So just an example, the airfare, a cab to and from the airport, baggage fees. The in-country expenses such as lodging or meals would be provided through the existing ERC funding. If requested and if discussed ahead of time, NSF can also provide a bit of supplemental funding for immediate family members to travel to make one round trip as part of the visit. So this is our attempt to sort of bridge the gap between professional interest and maintaining a harmonious home life for our grantees. So we can, for a spouse and for dependent children, for example, we can cover one round trip airfare for each of those family members. How long? The visits may be a single short-term visit, a single long-term visit, multiple short-term visits. Our PIs put together quite diverse packages of trips to meet their own needs and to meet the needs of the research that's being proposed. We do have guidance that the maximum duration for a single trip or the accumulation of multiple visits is no more than 12 months. The steps for the NSF funded PI, we do issue on the NSF side, we do issue what we call a Dear Colleague letter announcing this opportunity to our PIs. The NSF funded PI then requests to see that list of ERC funded PIs who have expressed interest in hosting. The NSF funded PI looks through that list and sees if they can find a potential host from the ERC side. The NSF funded PI then would initiate contact with the ERC funded host and discuss the potential collaboration. At that same time or around that same time, NSF also asks the NSF funded PI to contact their program director, the program director at NSF who manages their award. So we want the NSF funded PI to be talking with their potential host and to be talking with their program director at NSF about the same time to talk through the research that they have in mind. This way we make sure that the NSF funding program is okay with the idea, the NSF funded PI and the ERC funded PI have a conversation to then fully develop the collaboration. We ask that the PIs on both sides talk about the timeline, obviously the research to be conducted, the timeline, and the logistics. There's a lot of logistics involved in traveling for these visits. And then the NSF funded PI submits the request to NSF. As Davide said, NSF then reviews the request, and we look for a few things. In their Dear Colleague letter, we do ask for a number of components of the supplemental request. So obviously we want a description of the research and how it relates to the current NSF funded research and broader career goals of that PI. We also want to see a bio of the NSF funded PI and the ERC funded PI host, a timeline for the proposed research, a budget and budget justification. Then we ask for a few things from the institutions within the US and within the ERC funded PI host institution. So a communication from the department chair of the US PI endorsing the visit, communication from the ERC funded PI indicating, yes, they are willing to host. They agree with the proposed research, that it is valuable to them. And then we also seek endorsement from the institution where the ERC funded PI host is housed. Some other permitting type issues might be required for specific research that involve human subjects or animal subjects as well. Then on timing. So unfortunately, this year's opportunity has closed. It closed just maybe 6 weeks ago, but I do expect a similar opportunity to be issued in the spring of 2023. So think maybe the March 2023 timeframe for a Dear Colleague letter to be issued, and then perhaps May 2023 for the supplemental request to be due to NSF. In the slides, which again, I'm very happy to share, there is a link to this year's opportunity so folks can see for reference what the Dear Colleague letter might look like next year. And that's it.
So thanks very much, Roxanne, and apologies for the interruption. Hopefully that is at an end now. The next speaker is Phil Holliday from the UKRO, who is the UK national contact point for the ERC and for other types of EU funding as well.
Thank you very much, Brian, for inviting me today. Thank you for EURAXESS UK for hosting this event. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending where you are based across the globe. Thanks very much for taking your time to come in and listen to this webinar. As Brian said, my name is Phil Holliday. I'm a European advisor at UKRO, the UK Research Office, and I'll talk a little bit more about who UKRO is, what UKRO is in just a moment. And my sort of 10-minute presentation is going to be looking at what you can actually do with these ERC grants and international researchers and things you need to know, with a specific focus on the UK, of course, but they will be relevant if you're thinking of applying to other countries as well in Europe that have these ERC grantees. So UKRO, we're an organisation that supports UK organisations that are involved in EU research and innovation funding. As Brian said, we're also the UK national contact point for two parts of Horizon Europe, the European Research Council, hence why I'm here today, and for the Murray Skłodowska Curie Actions as well, which is the mobility scheme for Horizon Europe. We have this unique partnership between UKRI, the UK Research and Innovation, and about 140 organisations that subscribe to UKRO. We're based in Brussels. There's a big team of us. There's about 12 of us over here in Brussels, and we're also part of UKRI's wider international team as well. So what is a national contact point is probably a question that's popping into quite a few people's head if you're not familiar with this term. Well, we're a team of sector-specific public servants whose role it is to provide free support to UK participants in Horizon Europe. There's a whole network of us across the whole of Horizon Europe. So as I said before, for the ERC, for Murray Skłodowska Curie Actions, but also for all the different areas of Pillar 2 and also for the different areas of Pillar 3 as well, and for research infrastructures back in Pillar 1. That's just the UK network. There also is an international network of NCPs as well, and when you get these slides, you can click on these links and take you to the relevant web pages. So if you are interested and you're based in another country, then you can contact your relevant NCP to be able to help you and support you a bit more. NCPs are there to inform, to raise awareness of Horizon Europe, to assist, advise, and to offer training to improve the quality of Horizon Europe proposals, to signpost and offer cooperation. And if you'd like to know more about what we do and what my other NCP colleagues do, then you can sign up to our different newsletters that we have by clicking on that link there. And I've just put the email, our generic email address as well right at the bottom if you have any specific questions on the ERC. Okay, so moving now on to the implementing arrangements and things you need to know. I think Davide and Roxanne covered this in pretty good details already, so I won't spend too long on this particular slide, but just to recap exactly what you can do with these implementing arrangements. They can either be single long-term secondments of between 6 to 12 months to a UK-based ERC project, or it could be multiple short-term visits to the UK, of which the total amount of time that you spend on these multiple visits should be a minimum of 6 months in total. And of course, it can be up to 1 month in general. Who pays for what? Well, it really depends. Roxanne talked about the NSF and the sort of US perspective as to what the NSF would pay in terms of the US researchers interested in applying to this. If you're based in another country, then please do look at your specific implementing arrangement that's in place, and Davide went through all the different ones, so you know where they are. I've included hyperlink here, so if you don't know the website to go to click on that, and you can read through the specific agreement that's been put in place between the ERC and the relevant funding body. So, but in general, just to give you a bit of a gist, and this does vary, so please do look at the detail. The devil is in the detail. But for the national funder, it's usually the travel and visa costs, sometimes travel expenses for accompanying family members. Like Roxanne mentioned, NSF does this, which is fantastic. Sometimes there's research expenses offered, and sometimes they will continue to pay salaries or scholarships, depending on what time of grant that particular person has with their national funder. But again, please do look at all the individual agreements, because not all of them are the same, and not all of them cover all of those points. And then what's covered by the ERC grant? The ERC grant will cover any eligible costs incurred by the visiting researcher that's directly related to the ERC project. So anything that the visiting researcher is doing, which is helping and supporting this ERC project, that is a cost that will be that can be incurred on the grants. There is this subsistence cost per diem, but again, it is sort of, you have to follow your standard practices of your host institution. So you need to speak to the relevant host institution and ask them what kind of deal they have in terms of offering you some sort of per diem support or subsistence support. But the key thing to remember is that the maximum amount of the ERC grant cannot be increased because of this additional researcher coming along on an implementing arrangement. These additional costs have to be sort of included within the ERC project by moving budgets around a little bit to be able to allow this the particular visiting researcher to come and work on this particular project. So again, just talking a little bit about visa options. Again, just to mention that UCRO isn't a specialist in visas or immigration. You know, we can only really sort of signpost you to the relevant places to find more information. This webinar isn't set up to give immigration advice to particular individuals. If you are looking for any specific immigration and advice, then please do use an advisor approved through the Office of Immigration Services, or consult your internal HR or immigration team to find out more information. So I can't give specific advice to individuals. So if you do have questions about it yourself individually, then I can't give you specific advice. I can just point you to the right areas where you should be looking to try and find out about this, and speak to your relevant HR team about this. So again, depending on how you would like to do your implementing arrangement, if it's short term, then you might be looking at a visitor visa or a temporary work government authorized exchange visa. For the visiting visa, that can be sort of up to 6 months. It could be up to 12 months, depending on certain situations. And even though the name suggests it's a visiting visa, there are some activities you can do under a visitor's visa. But you have to be careful, because you can't of course do actual work as such, because you are a visitor, but you can do sort of other things that are related to that. So you can take part in business related activities. You can attend meetings, conferences, seminars, interviews. You can receive training. You can gather information and facts for specific projects. And you can also share knowledge or advise on an international project that's being led from the UK, provided you're not actually carrying out the research in the UK. And also certain higher education institutions may be able to offer engagements where the individual is able to undertake research or be taught about research. So it's again dependent on the individual universities themselves. So that again is another reason to speak to them and ask them about what they would advise for you going forward. For this temporary work government authorized exchange visa, again, this can be up to 12 or also 24 months. You need to get a certificate of sponsorship from a licensed sponsor, of which a huge majority of UK HEIs are licensed sponsors, so that shouldn't necessarily be a problem. And this allows you as the sponsored researcher to give lectures, to act as an examiner, undertake skills development, knowledge transfer, undertake a period of work-based training or experience, internships, placement of work on research collaborations. So again, depending on who you're planning on going to visit and what sort of activities you plan on doing on your arrangements and on your visits will depend on which sort of type of visa you might apply for. Then just looking for the long term, if you're going for just one single visit of up to 12 months, then the Global Talent Visa might be the best way to go for that. It specifically has one of the areas in which it's focusing on academia or research, so you would tick that box, and you would have to apply under the endorsed funder route, because Horizon Europe and Horizon 2020 grants are endorsed by UKRI, so you would sort of tick that sort of endorsement route to be able to get the support for that. And then there are a couple of things that you need to also adhere to, which I've listed here. And just in the interest of time, I'm not going to read all these out, but to mention that you should be able to tick all of these, particularly within ERC grant as well. Just some other things to think about as well. So it's not just a visa that you'll need to think about. And again, please do speak to the UK institution's HR department to confirm all these additional requirements. Depending which country you're from and where you're moving from, you may need some vaccination certificates. Depending on the research area that you're working in, you might need an academic technology approval scheme certificate. Although, as a caveat, if you're a national of one of these countries, then you're exempt from having to apply for this certificate. So that might make it a bit easier for some of you. And also, you might have to pay the immigration health surcharge over in the UK as well, particularly if you're coming over for longer than 6 months and you're applying from outside of the UK as well. Other things just to mention that it's the Home Office, UK Home Office, it's their sole decision that they make the decisions on the visa applications. Applicants should always check to see if you require a visa to come and travel to the UK. Endorsements or sponsorships by a host, employer or overarching body is a requirement specific to some visa routes. You can only have one visa application made at any one time. And if you are bringing your family over, they may need to apply for visas and pay for healthcare surcharges as well. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'll hand over to Brian.
Thanks very, very much, Phil, for that contribution for people who are kind of on the practical aspects of moving to the UK. I would now like to ask Jackson Howard from EURAXESS North America, and EURAXESS North America are responsible for advising on international mobility between the North America and Europe and vice versa.
Thank you very much, Brian. It's really a pleasure to be here alongside some great speakers providing a lot of deep knowledge on these specific programs. I'm going to try to present EURAXESS North America very quickly to give some extra time for Q&A. And those that are already familiar with us will see that the content's a bit familiar. So before I just open up the slides, I want to say that the UK seems to be a very popular destination for a lot of North American and all international researchers. And so you have great resources here. I'm just saying this to the whole audience. If you have any UK-related questions, in addition to asking through us, our colleagues at EURAXESS United Kingdom and ACRO will provide a lot of expertise on particularly the current state of affairs with United Kingdom's participation in Horizon Europe and the European Commission's Research Innovation Framework Program. I think sometimes it feels like on a month-to-month basis, quarter-to-quarter basis, some new answers come out. So they'll be really good at keeping you in touch with a lot of those. So I look forward, I will share my screen, and if there's any technical problems with my screen share not working, I invite Brian and the others to let me know if it's not showing up. And if there are any interruptions, please feel free, any of my co-hosts, to click the security button and then suspend participant activities. Although I think this last slideshow went very well. So excuse me while I just get this ready. So like I said, this will be something of a general introduction. Brian, can you see my screen, full screen here?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, thank you. So you already heard those first 2 minutes of the opening with EURAXESS UK. That's what I'll call the country-specific, one of the national portals of EURAXESS within the European continent. Under EURAXESS worldwide, we're a smaller part of the overall EURAXESS project, but we are the hubs outside of Europe, providing information to our sort of regional areas. So my colleague and I cover the United States and Canada. We're a team based in Washington, D.C., but what EURAXESS does overall basically doesn't change based on the region. So we provide access to a complete range of information and support services for the European research area. We call this ERA. It's that unique pan-European initiative of the EU to make the entire continent basically borderless, unified in the sense of research, innovation, and technology across the EU. So this is the 27 EU member states and then the associated countries. Those are the countries in Europe and the periphery that pay into the budget for research and innovation, so that for the purpose of carrying out research, they're sort of treated the same. There's some technicalities to that. I won't get too much into the details, but for the most part, you can think of Europe as a whole that is open to you as an international researcher for the purpose of free circulation and scientific knowledge and technology. So we're in over 40 countries in Europe, and then there's 9 global hubs. Like I said, we're in North America, but pretty much any part of the world you're in, there will be local representatives who can help you. And regardless of where you're based or what your nationality is, you're here at today's webinar, so contact us at EURAXESS North America. We'll do everything we can to get you the information that you'd like. We're an official project of the European Commission. I should make this clear. So we didn't create ourselves to try to tack ourselves onto a project, but really we're created by the EU as a way of making Europe more accessible for research and providing some support services to European researchers who come to the US and Canada on grants like the ERC grants. And everything we offer is free. We also really like to team up and partner. So when all the other speakers approached us and said, would you like to join this webinar on implementing arrangements? We said yes. So if you are a researcher, if you are at a research office at a university in Europe or in North America, and you think there's some value we can give by speaking or by promoting your event, we're really open to this. So just send us an email and let us know. Our contact information will be at the end of this slideshow. So I have here really quickly, these headers more or less mirror the main section of our website. So you'll find all of the EURAXESS worldwide hubs and the EURAXESS national portals basically have a unified layout. There's a horizontal strip or bar at the top of the screen that all achieve the same functions. So when someone thinks EURAXESS, when you Google EURAXESS, the first result you'll see is the jobs and funding portal. These are updated live. There's at any given point, there's about 12 or 13,000 opportunities throughout Europe. And this is where you can also find funding schemes, funding programs like ERC grants, for example, and you can toggle on with all these different filters, things like the country of interest for you, your field, you can type in search results. So it's really dynamic, it's robust, it's centrally managed. So it's not like you're getting a fragmented version based on where you're from. You're accessing that central database wherever you go, as long as you just search on your favorite search engine for EURAXESS jobs board. There's also the partnering tool and hosting. This can be useful if you're applying for bottom-up funding from the EU, like these ERC grants or the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions, which is some also really great fellowships that you write as a researcher. You write your proposal bottom up. We have career development. So, for example, last year we had a 5-part webinar series on academic publishing. All of this is archived on our YouTube channel and our website. So free of charge. So you can just search EURAXESS North America or any of the worldwide hubs and find access to this. And then to loop back to my earlier comments about EURAXESS UK, information and assistance. So there's about 600 service centers within all of Europe, basically regional experts and subject matter experts and funding program experts. So you can find the right point of contact based on your specific inquiry. You can ask us and we'll get you in touch with them. And then you also have 42 national portals, which I'll show in a slide. So basically, of any country specific questions, if you are, regardless of if you are European or not, your nationality, if you know you want to go to the UK, you know you want to go to Germany, you simply go to that national portal and there will be a lot of specific information there. So your portal to all of this, or the way you can get access to this information, is through EURAXESS Worldwide. Like I said, we are one of the umbrellas under the entire EURAXESS project. So in North America, regardless of where you're from, we are your points of contact. So send us an email, be in touch with us on social media, and I'll make sure I share a link to sign up for our emails. We call them our flash notes. We send them bi-monthly, and I think it provides a lot of value that I'll encourage you to, in my final remarks, sign up for that as well. So when you go to the main homepage, EURAXESS.org, it'll ask you, what are you and what are you looking for? And then from there, you click that yellow search button. It'll automatically take you to the appropriate response. So if you're looking for funding, it'll jump you to that jobs and funding portal. It's quite self-explanatory, but I do like to share a couple screenshots in my brief introduction just to let you know what you're getting into. There you go, circled in red is that jobs and funding portal. And here are some examples of the different filters you can toggle on and off. In this specific example, where it says European Research Program, that's letting you know which specific funding opportunities you might be searching within. So if you know it's ERC that you're interested in, you can cut out all the fluff, remove all the other search results, and only see ERC related options. Information and assistance, this is where you can click that Explore EURAXESS National Portals button. And as you'll see on this slide, get country-specific information for all of the EU member states, associated countries, and associated countries that pay into the budget. So this is where you'll see EURAXESS UK alongside many other different countries. And there are some differences country to country, but for the most part, they are standardized across 18 different topics in 3 total categories. So to randomly read a few, there's career development, there's job opportunities, there's pension rights, things that Phil was just mentioning in his presentation a few moments ago that are country specific. So this is where if you know the country or a small number of countries you're potentially interested in, they will be really the subject matter experts that can give you that information. A lot of this is pre-prepared. There's PDFs you can download. There's sort of interactive websites where you can just click a few buttons and get the information. And then, of course, if that information's if what you're looking for is not there for you, you can just reach them by email or phone call, and they'll discuss with you further. So I will share a link to sign up for our flash notes, our email subscription list, but this is also where you can do it on the website. If you click EURAXESS Worldwide, you'll see all 9 hubs outside of Europe. You can click North America, and then this is where you can, for example, see the news and events that we post regularly, but that big yellow button is where you can sign up, leave your name and email, and then start to get these email blasts from us. So in quick summary, what we do is we link researchers in North America to Europe. We also go in the other direction where we provide support services, and we highlight the success stories of a lot of the European scientific diaspora networks in the US and Canada. We give constant information on European funding opportunities. This includes things like sharing call dates, projected call opening dates, call deadlines, national funding, and then institutional funding from universities themselves, and then really interesting things like the IAs, as we're speaking about here today. And of course, research career development. We have existing archive videos, but then also we're happy to, if you message us and tell us a little bit about yourself, what you're interested in, and we'll find a way to either put together some program or point you to existing resources. So you may be familiar with Horizon Europe, the 7-year framework program from the European Commission for Research and Innovation. We do some promotion of Pillar 2. I think there's sometimes, depending on the speakers we're able to go alongside, we might promote a specific cluster. We spend a lot of our efforts promoting Pillar 1. So as you can see, these ERC grants and these MSCA fellowships. So I would encourage you to search more for them, not just on the EURAXESS national portals, EURAXESS worldwide hubs like us, but also just on the overall EURAXESS website, flipping through the ERC grants that show up on the funding portal. And then, for example, if you're looking for a host institution, that's where you can also, for these MSCA fellowships, find universities interested in hosting you as a researcher who presumably, if you are successfully funded, if your application is accepted, you would be going with that to a European university. So Europe is open to the US. I can't stop singing the praises of these 2 funding programs, ERC and MCA. So I just leave you with this encouragement. I think if you're interested in IAs, you probably already are well aware of them, but I just want to leave here these bullet points that show the bottom-up nature of the 2 programs, and then also the very interesting evaluation criteria, depending on which one. They're surrounded on excellence. So you're not joining predetermined categories or funding programs that have been very specifically written to achieve a certain interest. Basically, if they're impactful and they're excellent, you have to say what category it's in so that the appropriate evaluators can evaluate your application. But really, it's bottom up, and you write it yourself. So I'm including this. I think most of you are aware, but just for the PDF presentation I'll share afterwards, I do want sort of a 1-sentence summary of all of the different ERC grants, so people have that for reference. And then it is an example of some of the things we do at EURAXESS North America. We compile a lot of the existing information out there. So the main source of this would be like the ERC website, the MSCA website, but this is where we can, for example, we put the dates in US format, and we try to make it a lot more digestible. So there's a single graphic we put together that we can share easily on social media and share in our email blast. So this is where you can see some of the upcoming opening and closing dates for calls for the 2023 period. So my colleague, Dr. Daria Buitner-Karajan, she's in the audience participating today. She and I run the office in Washington, D.C., like I said, covering North America. This email address comes to both of us, so please write us. The PDF version of this presentation, all of these links at the bottom will be clickable. And then I'm also, in just a moment in the chat, going to share these again. I would really encourage you just to sign up for these email newsletters. If you don't find them relevant to you, you can unsubscribe in 2 clicks. And I look forward to hopefully answering some questions, both now in the Q&A and then later on. So be in touch. Thank you so much. And I look forward to hearing some questions. Thank you.
Dear Jackson, thanks very much for this very concise and detailed representation of the work of EURAXESS. I would now like to ask the audience if you have any questions to let us know, and you can enter them in the chat. that we had some questions that were asked during the registration. I know that one of the questions was whether the age of the applicant is considered as a limit for applying. Maybe Roxanne could answer this, because I think this is something that the NSF looks at or evaluates.
It's not. We don't consider the age at all. Like I said in my presentation, we do encourage folks who are early in their career, but it's not limited to those folks.
And I think maybe Adrian has some questions that he would like to ask from the British Council.
I was just recapping on some of the other questions that I just wanted to make sure we'd gone through them. I think we've gone through country eligibility. There were a lot of queries before we came about some countries specifically named that were eligible. I just wanted to check that everyone feels that we've been clear about that. I know if there's not an agreement in place that we obviously implementing arrangement, then naturally some of those countries aren't. And also, let me just scan the list of questions to see if there was anything else. There was an example, a nice example. I don't know if our colleague from India is here on the call, where they asked about the chances for ERC cooperation agreement. And it was highlighted, I believe, that there is an agreement in place with the colleagues there. I don't know if the people on the call want to add anything to those. I think we've covered most of the countries.
Davide presented a very nice slide which had all of the international implementation arrangements with funders throughout the world. And I think that many of the questions that came through were about about countries where there may not be an implementation arrangement, but there are lots of other types of funding where there's access, and that if you contact the EURAXESS worldwide coordinator within your within your country or within your region, I'm sure that they have a lot of information about EU funding and also national funding as well within European countries. I will just check the chat to see if our attendees have any questions that we can get back to them. If that is not the case, because the presentations from our speakers were very, very clear and thorough and explained exactly what these international arrangements fundings are about. And I would like to thank them very much for this. And then I would like to ask Adrian to give some final words.
So I've learned a lot today, and it's really nice to have brought together this international audience and the opportunities that are out there. Echoing Brian's words that, you know, if some of the highlighted examples don't relate to your countries, do persevere. There might be other things out there on the EURAXESS or other portal, and do come back to us. So I'd really like to say a big thank you as well from my personal perspective to all our speakers in different time zones and different places, and for you to having joined us today. So do come get back to us with questions. We want to keep the conversations going, and that's what it's all about. Thank you very much.